The stars glowed against the darkness of space as Admiral Ta walked slowly across the bridge of his command ship. The viewport stretched before him, showing the remains of what had once been a beautiful star system. Now, only debris and dead ships floated in the void. Ta had seen too many battlefields like this one. For centuries, he had commanded Confederation forces against the Stellar Alliance. The war had started long before he was born, long before his grandfather's grandfather was born. He stopped at the edge of the viewport and placed his hand against the cold surface. The blue skin of his fingers contrasted with the blackness beyond. In the distance, the light of weapons fire flashed as smaller ships continued to hunt each other. 800 millennia, he muttered. How many more must die before this ends? No one answered his question. No one ever did. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring systems and tracking enemy movements. They had all lost family to this war. Every person in the Confederation had. Tay remembered his home world as it had been in his youth, the crystal forests still standing, the sky still clear. Now those forests were gone, and the air was filled with dust from constant bombings. His children had never seen the beauty he once knew. Commander June's footsteps echoed on the deck as he approached. June was young for his position, but war created quick promotions. Half of Teta's officer corps had been killed in the last decade alone. "Sir," Jum said, his voice low and respectful. He held out a data tablet, its screen glowing with information. "Our scouts have detected an unknown vessel approaching from Sector 12. Tay took the tablet and studied the readings. "Alliance." "No, sir. It appears to be primitive." Tay's interest piqued. Something new in this ancient war was rare. "Show me." June tapped the tablet, and a holographic display appeared above it. The image showed a ship unlike any in the Confederation or Alliance fleets. It was sleek, but clearly built by inexperienced hands. The design lacked the refined efficiency that came from thousands of years of space warfare. The vessel bore markings in an unfamiliar script. USS Stardestroyer. "Humans," Jum said with mild disdain. "The Bictal species from the outer rim. They've only achieved interstellar travel within the last century." Ta had heard of humans. Intelligence reports mentioned them occasionally, a young species that had developed surprisingly quickly. They had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel, yet already they were venturing far from their home system. What could they possibly want in a war zone? Ta wondered aloud. "Perhaps they're lost," Jun suggested. "Or suicidal." Ta zoomed in on the ship. Its design was unusual, almost beautiful in its simplicity. While Confederation and Alliance vessels were built for function and survival, this human ship showed signs of aesthetic consideration. They had cared how it looked, not just how it performed. "Have they detected our presence?" Tai asked. "Unknown, Admiral. Their scanning technology appears limited." Ta considered his options. Standard protocol for encountering neutral species in battle zones was simple. Warn them once, then destroy them if they didn't leave immediately. The war allowed no room for complications or witnesses. And yet, Ta hesitated. "Establish communication," he ordered. June looked surprised. "Sir, Alliance forces are regrouping in Sector 14. We don't have time for." "Establish communication," Tay repeated firmly. As June moved to carry out the order, Tay continued studying the human ship. Something about it stirred a long-dormant feeling within him. Curiosity. After centuries of the same enemy, the same tactics, the same endless cycle of violence, here was something new. The communications officer worked at her station. "Signal established. Admiral." "They're responding." The holographic display shifted, and a face appeared, similar to Ta's people, but with pale skin instead of blue, and no crystal formations along the jawline. The human looked young, perhaps like June in relative age. "This is Captain Min of the Earth vessel USS Stardestroyer," the human said. "We come in peace and seek only passage through this region." Ta stepped forward. This is Admiral Ta of the Galactic Confederation. You have entered an active war zone. For your safety, you must leave immediately. The human captain looked confused. War zone. Our scans showed no large-scale conflict in this sector. June whispered to Tai. Their sensors must be even more primitive than we thought. Tai was about to respond when alert signals flashed across the bridge. The tactical officer called out, Admiral, Alliance warships decloaking. They're targeting the human vessel. On the screen, Captain Min's face showed alarm as warnings sounded on his own bridge. Tai made a split-second decision. Extend shields to cover the human ship. June looked shocked. Sir, that will leave our port side vulnerable. Do it, Tai ordered. As the Confederation flagship's shields stretched to encompass the small human vessel, Ta wondered why he was risking his ship for these strangers. Perhaps after 800,000 years of destruction, the simple act of protection felt right. Or perhaps he sensed that these humans, these newcomers to the stars, might somehow matter to the future of this endless war. Captain Han's hands gripped the armrests of his command chair as another explosion rocked the USS Stardestroyer. The bridge lights flickered, casting brief shadows across the worried faces of his crew. What had begun as a routine exploration mission had turned into a nightmare. Their experimental jump drive had malfunctioned, dropping them directly between two massive alien armadas locked in battle. Status report, Han demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The crew needed confidence now, not panic. Lieutenant Minji's fingers moved quickly across her tactical display. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, revealing a face set with determination despite the chaos around them. Shield integrity at 92%, Captain, she reported. Minor damage to decks 3 and 4. No casualties. She looked up from her console. Sir, we're being hailed by both sides. Han straightened in his chair. First contact was supposed to be a careful, planned affair with diplomatic teams and prepared speeches. Not this, not with weapons firing all around them. On screen, he ordered. The main view screen split into two images. On the left appeared a blue-skinned alien with crystalline formations along its jaw and forehead. Its eyes were entirely black, reflecting the lights of its ship's bridge. On the right was a reptilian being with scaled skin and vibrant feathered crests that shifted colors as it moved. Both aliens wore what Han recognized as military uniforms, though their designs were as different as the beings themselves. Both also wore expressions that needed no translation, annoyance mixed with curiosity. Han cleared his throat. This is Captain Han of Earth vessel Stardestroyer. We come in peace and have no part in your conflict. The reptilian commander spoke first, its translator converting its hissing speech into understandable words. Remove your vessel immediately. This is no place for primitive species. The blue alien laughed coldly. Your technology is beneath notice. You will be destroyed if you remain. Han felt sweat forming on his brow. The Stardestroyer was Earth's most advanced ship, equipped with humanity's first successful faster-than-light drive. Back home, it was considered a marvel of engineering. Here, surrounded by these ancient civilizations' warships, it must seem like a child's toy. He glanced at Ji-1, his science officer. She had been studying the sensor readings of the alien ships since they'd arrived. Something in her expression caught his attention. Not fear, but calculation. She nodded subtly. Han turned back to the screen. Actually, he replied with unexpected confidence, I believe we might have something to contribute to this situation. Both alien commanders looked surprised at his boldness. What could your species possibly offer? Asked the blue-skinned admiral. You've barely left your home system. Han stood from his chair and stepped closer to the view screen. That's precisely why we can help. We see with fresh eyes. A nearby explosion rocked the ship again. Through the viewports, Han could see distant flashes of light where ships were being destroyed. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humanity had ever known. How long has this war been going on? Han asked. The reptilian commander's feathers flattened against its head. 800,000 years. The number struck Han like a physical blow. Human civilization was barely a fraction of that age. "And what are you fighting for?" he asked. "After so much time, does anyone remember?" Both commanders started speaking at once, listing grievances and territories and broken treaties. Their voices overlapped until Han raised his hand. "Enough," he said quietly. The aliens fell silent, perhaps surprised at being interrupted by a primitive. Jai-1 approached and whispered in Han's ear, "Captain, their weapons systems are based on quantum principles similar to our jump drive. The frequency modulations we developed to stabilize our drive might disrupt their targeting systems." Han nodded slightly. It was a long shot, but they had few options. "We offer to demonstrate something you may find valuable," Han said to the alien commanders. "A way to end battles without destruction. Will you allow us to proceed?" The Blue Admiral's crystalline features caught the light as he tilted his head. "You have one of your time units, what you call minutes, to explain your proposal. I need 10 minutes to prepare, then 5 to demonstrate," Han countered. The reptilian commander hissed. 5 to prepare, 3 to demonstrate. Then we resume battle." Han nodded. "Agreed." The transmission ended, and Han turned to his crew. "Jai-1, Minji with me in the engine room. Communications, inform engineering we're coming. Navigation, keep us exactly where we are." As they hurried through the corridors, Jai-1 explained her idea in more detail. The Star Destroyer's jump drive created a quantum field that allowed it to slip between normal space. A modified version of that field might temporarily disrupt the aliens' targeting systems without damaging their ships. In the engine room, engineers worked frantically to reconfigure the drive. G1's hands moved across control panels, making adjustments while explaining the physics to Han. "It's ready, Captain," she finally said. "But I must warn you, this is theoretical. If it works, it will disable their weapons for about 3 minutes. If it fails, we'll be destroyed," Han finished. "But if we do nothing, millions more will die in this war." He tapped his communication badge. Bridge, open channels to both commanders. Back on the view screen, the alien leaders waited impatiently. "Watch carefully," Han told them. "What you're about to see might change the course of your war." Jai-1 activated the modified drive. A pulse of blue-white energy expanded from the Star Destroyer in all directions. As it passed over the nearest ships, their weapons fell silent. For the first time in 800,000 years, the battlefield was quiet. G1's fingers moved rapidly across the engineering console as sweat beaded on her forehead. Around her, the Star Destroyer's engine room hummed with energy, the experimental quantum displacement drive glowing with a soft blue light at its center. The temporary demonstration they had shown the alien commanders had worked for exactly 3 minutes before failing, but instead of being impressed, both sides had simply resumed their battle once weapons came back online. "They're too used to fighting," Jai-1 muttered to herself as she worked. 800,000 years of war. It's all they know. The ship's AI system, Atlas, displayed holographic equations in the air around her. Its calm voice provided calculations as she made adjustments to the drive systems. "Engineer J1, the modifications you're attempting have a 78% chance of causing drive failure," Atlas warned. Jai-1 pushed a strand of hair from her face. "And what are the chances of success?" "Success parameters are undefined," the AI responded. "Please clarify objectives." "Success means stopping this war," she said firmly. "At least this battle." The AI was silent for a moment, processing. "Calculating variable outcomes based on current conflict data. Processing. There is insufficient data to provide accurate prediction." Jai-1 sighed. Computer systems, even advanced ones like Atlas, struggled with moral questions. She continued her work, rerouting power systems and reconfiguring the quantum field generators. A young engineer named Sun approached, carrying a toolkit. "I've brought the phase inverters you asked for." "Good," Jai-1 said, taking the tools. "Help me install them." We need to amplify the field strength by at least 400%. As they worked, Jai-1 explained her discovery. The quantum displacement drive doesn't just move our ship through space. It creates a bubble where physics works differently. When I analyzed the alien weapons signatures, I realized they all operate on similar principles. If we adjust our field to target those specific energy frequencies. Sun's eyes widened as he understood. We could neutralize their weapons without harming their ships. Exactly. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alarm. The ship rocked violently as something struck the hull. Bridge to engineering. Captain Han's voice came through the communication system. We've been hit. A stray shot from the Confederation fleet. Shields at 63%. Jai-1 steadied herself against a console. Captain, I have news. Our quantum displacement drive has an unforeseen capability. When properly calibrated, it can create a field that neutralizes all energy weapons within range by shifting their particles out of phase with our reality. There was a pause before Han's voice returned, tension evident despite the static. How large of a range? With modifications, potentially this entire battlefield. Jai-1 looked at the complex calculations floating before her. But it's never been tested at this scale. We're talking about affecting hundreds of ships across thousands of kilometers of space. Side effects? Han asked. The drive will run hot. Very hot. We'll have limited time before it burns out completely. Through the comm system, Jai-1 could hear the sounds of the bridge. Urgent reports, warning signals, the controlled chaos of a crew fighting to survive in a war zone they never meant to enter. Captain, the tactical officer's voice came in the background. Another Confederation cruiser just went down. Alliance forces are pressing their advantage. Estimated casualties, 8,000 on that ship alone. Jai-1 waited, knowing Captain Han was weighing impossible choices. The Stardestroyer was Earth's first true interstellar vessel. Its experimental drive represented the pinnacle of human scientific achievement. Using it this way might destroy it forever and strand them far from home. Through a nearby viewport, Jai-1 could see flashes of weapons fire. A massive Confederation warship split apart under Alliance bombardment, its hull breaking into pieces as atmosphere vented into space. In the distance, Alliance ships were similarly being destroyed by Confederation forces. Captain Han stood on his bridge, watching the same scene unfold. 800,000 years of warfare. Trillions dead. Countless civilizations extinguished. All for a conflict so ancient that its original cause was lost to time. Do it, he ordered finally. We've got 50 minutes before our core overheats. Jai-1 took a deep breath. Understood, Captain. Beginning final modifications now. She turned to Sun and the other engineers. You heard the captain. We have one chance to make this work. The team moved with practiced efficiency, connecting systems that were never designed to work together. Warning lights flashed on several panels as they pushed the experimental drive beyond its tested limits. At last, Jai-1 called to the ship's AI. Run continuous diagnostics on the core temperature. Alert me when we reach critical levels. Acknowledged, Engineer G1. As they worked, Jai-1 thought about the enormity of what they were attempting. Humans had only been in space for a few centuries, and here they were, trying to end a war that had raged for 800 millennia. Power regulators in place, Sun reported. Field amplifiers at maximum. Jai-1 made the final connections and stepped back to view their work. The modified drive pulsed with energy, its blue glow now tinged with red as it operated beyond safe parameters. Engineering to bridge, she called. Modifications complete. We're ready. Captain Han's voice came back immediately. Engage when ready. Jai-1 placed her hand on the activation control. Around her, the engineering team watched in silence, the weight of the moment heavy on everyone's shoulders. For Earth, she said quietly, and for peace. She activated the system. The ship hummed deeply as power flowed into the modified drive. The countdown timer appeared on all screens, 50 o'clock minutes until core overheating. The ultimate test had begun. The USS Stardestroyer's engines burned hot as Captain Han directed his helmsman to take them directly into the heart of the battle. From the bridge view screen, the scene looked like a nightmare come to life. Thousands of alien warships firing destructive weapons at each other, space itself seeming to warp and burn with energy discharges. "Captain, are you certain about this position?" asked the navigator, his voice tight with tension. "We're moving into the heaviest concentration of enemy vessels." Han nodded firmly. "Precisely where we need to be for maximum effect. Maintain course." The human ship moved steadily forward, small compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts around it. Occasionally, a stray shot rocked the Star Destroyer, but most of the alien vessels paid it no attention. To them, the human ship was insignificant, barely worth noticing in their ancient conflict. In engineering, G1 monitored the modified quantum displacement drive. Its housing glowed red-hot as power levels climbed beyond safety parameters. Warning alarms had been silenced, though the flashing red lights continued throughout the section. "Core temperature rising," reported Sun from a nearby console. 49 minutes until critical overload." Ji-1 nodded grimly. "Captain, we're in position. Field ready for activation." On the bridge, Han took a deep breath. This was humanity's first major interaction with alien civilizations, and here they were about to disable the military might of species that had been spacefaring when humans were still living in caves. "Proceed with activation," he ordered. Ji-1's voice came clearly through the comm system. "Field activation in 3, 2, 1. She pressed the activation control. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a visible pulse of blue-white energy expanded outward from the Star Destroyer like a ripple in a pond. It moved slowly at first, then accelerated, passing through solid matter, as if it weren't there. As the energy wave touched the first alien warships, their weapon ports suddenly went dark. Engine exhausts flickered and died. The ships continued moving on inertia, but they were clearly powerless. "It's working," exclaimed Minji from Tactical. "First wave of ships are completely neutralized." Han watched in amazement as the effect spread. The weapons fire that had filled space began to diminish as more and more ships fell silent. The battlefield was growing quiet for the first time in possibly centuries. Aboard the Confederation flagship, Admiral Ta stared in disbelief as his ship's systems failed one by one. The lights dimmed, weapons control panels went dark, and even life support switched to emergency backup. "What is happening?" he demanded, the crystal formations on his face catching the emergency lighting and scattering it in jagged patterns. Commander Jun worked frantically at a manual diagnostic panel, one of the few systems still functioning. "The human ship," he replied, equally stunned. "They've deployed some kind of dampening field. It's affecting all powered systems." Ta moved to the viewport. Outside, he could see the effect spreading across his fleet. Mighty warships that had destroyed worlds were now drifting helplessly. In the distance, he could see the same happening to the Alliance vessels. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Their technology is primitive." On the Star Destroyer, Han monitored the spread of the field effect. "Status report. Field continuing to expand at predicted rate," reported Ji-1 from engineering. "Core temperature climbing steadily. 44 minutes remaining." Minji added from Tactical, 15% of the battlefield affected. No signs of resistance or counteraction from alien vessels. Han nodded, watching the displays. The field continued to spread, neutralizing ship after ship. By the 15-minute mark, half the battlefield had gone quiet. The once chaotic space was becoming eerily still as massive warships floated powerless. "Core temperature reaching second warning level," Ji-1 reported, her voice showing the strain of maintaining the unstable field. 33 minutes remaining. Han paced the bridge, aware that his small crew was making history. Whether they would survive to tell of it remained uncertain. By the 30-minute mark, 3/4 of both fleets had been neutralized. The remaining ships attempted to flee, but the field expanded faster than they could escape. "Captain," Sun called from engineering. "We're detecting communication attempts between the disabled ships. They're using old-fashioned light signaling. The only method still working for them." Han smiled grimly. "They're finally talking to each other." At minute 45, both massive armadas floated helplessly in space. The Star Destroyer had accomplished what seemed impossible. It had completely halted a battle involving thousands of advanced warships. 5 minutes remaining before core breach, Jai-1 warned. "The system cannot sustain this output any longer." Han straightened his uniform and turned to communications. "Open a channel to all vessels. Use every frequency, every method. They need to hear this." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Captain. You're broadcasting to all ships." Han took a deep breath. "This is Captain Han of Earth. Your weapons are temporarily disabled. This technology can be permanently deployed at every battlefield across your territories." He paused, letting the magnitude of the threat sink in. "You have two choices: begin peace negotiations or face technological regression to pre-space levels. You have 5 minutes to decide." He signaled for the channel to be closed and turned to face his bridge crew. Their faces showed a mixture of awe and fear at the ultimatum he had just delivered. "Now we wait," Han said quietly, "and hope 800,000 years of hatred can be overcome by 5 minutes of powerlessness." The countdown continued on every screen. 4:59, 4:58, 4:57. Captain Han adjusted the collar of his dress uniform as he stood in the Great Hall of Harmony. The room was unlike anything humans had ever built. Its ceiling seemed to float without support, changing colors to match the mood of those beneath it. Currently, it glowed a soft blue, reflecting the cautious hope that filled the space. 3 months had passed since the USS Stardestroyer had stopped the battle. 3 months of tense talks, of threats and counter-threats, of moments when it seemed war would erupt again. But somehow, peace had held. Han looked around at the gathering. 200 different alien species filled the hall, their forms as varied as their cultures. Some floated in containment fields filled with special gases. Others moved on multiple legs or glided across the floor. Many looked almost human, but with subtle differences: skin colors impossible on Earth, eyes that saw spectrums humans could not perceive. Most remarkable was seeing representatives of the Confederation and Alliance sitting near each other without weapons drawn. For 800,000 years, such a scene would have been unthinkable. Jai-1 stood nearby, speaking with a group of alien engineers. After the battle, she had become something of a celebrity among the scientific communities of both sides. Her quantum displacement theory had been studied and verified by the greatest minds in the galaxy. They had confirmed what the Star Destroyer had demonstrated. The technology could indeed be deployed galaxy-wide if necessary. Han smiled as he watched her explain human scientific principles. The modified drive core had burned out completely after the 50-minute demonstration, but not before serving its purpose. Earth was now sending engineers to help rebuild it, using the opportunity to learn from alien technology in return. Admiral Tai approached, his crystalline features catching the light from above. The blue-skinned commander moved with dignity, his formal uniform adorned with symbols of rank that dated back thousands of years. "Captain Han," he said, bowing slightly in the human fashion they had learned. "I still find it difficult to comprehend. How did your species develop such technology when you've barely left your solar system?" Han returned the bow. "Sometimes fresh eyes see solutions where others see only problems. We had no preconceptions about what was impossible." Ta considered this answer. "Perhaps that is why we failed. After so many years of war, we stopped looking for alternatives. We only saw what had always been." Their conversation was interrupted as the Alliance Supreme Commander approached. Sue was tall and elegant, her reptilian features softened by the ceremonial feathered crest she wore for formal occasions. The feathers shifted color from blue to green as she moved. Once bitter enemies, she and Ta now spoke without hostility. Han watched in amazement as they exchanged formal greetings. Their peoples had killed trillions of each other's kind, yet here they stood, speaking as equals. "The Galactic Concord Treaty will be signed today," Sue said, her translator converting her hissing speech perfectly. 800 millennia of war, ended in 50 minutes by a species we didn't even know existed. Han felt the weight of her words. When the Star Destroyer had first jumped into that battlefield, they had been terrified, certain they would be destroyed. Instead, they had changed the course of galactic history. "Humanity is honored to join the galactic community," Han replied. "And perhaps our greatest contribution wasn't our technology, but simply our perspective." Ta nodded slowly. "You showed us what we have forgotten, that there are always alternatives to destruction." A soft chime sounded throughout the hall, signaling that the ceremony would soon begin. Representatives moved toward their assigned places. At the center of the hall stood a simple table made from materials contributed by each major world involved in the treaty. Han took his place among the witnesses. Earth, having acted as the mediator, had been granted special status in the new alliance forming today. Humanity, barely a century into its interstellar age, now stood as equals with civilizations that had explored the stars when dinosaurs still walked Earth. The signing ceremony began with ancient rituals from both the Confederation and Alliance traditions. Leaders who had ordered the deaths of billions now made solemn vows of peace. Ships that had been weapons of war would be converted to exploration vessels. Resources once dedicated to destruction would rebuild worlds damaged in the conflict. As he watched, Han thought about the unlikely chain of events that had brought them here. The experimental jump drive had malfunctioned, dropping them into the middle of a battle they were not equipped to fight. Yet that very malfunction had revealed the solution that 800,000 years of war had not found. Han looked across the hall and caught Ji-Won's eye. She smiled, and he knew she was thinking the same thing. The Star Destroyer's mission had been to explore strange new worlds, to represent humanity among the stars. Instead, it had made history in a way no one could have predicted. A sudden hush fell over the gathering as the final signatures were applied to the treaty. For a moment, the entire hall was silent. Then, slowly, a sound began, a rhythm tapped out by many different appendages. The ceiling above shifted to a bright gold, reflecting the rising joy in the room. "What happens now?" Han asked Sue and Tai, as the formal part of the ceremony concluded. Sue's feathered crest rippled with colors. "Now we learn to live without war. It may prove more difficult than fighting." Ta nodded. "For most of us, peace is an unknown frontier. We will need explorers to show us the way." Han understood their meaning. Earth had been chosen to lead the new galactic concord, not because of its power, but because humans were new enough to still believe in possibilities. As the celebration began around them, Captain Han looked out at the assembled aliens, former enemies now cautiously united. He thought of the small blue planet waiting for news of their mission, unaware of the role it would soon play in galactic affairs. He smiled to himself. Sometimes, the universe had a strange sense of humor.